Welcome to Mormon Book Reviews, where an evangelical encounters the restoration. I am your host, Steven Pynakker, and I'm truly honored to have my next guest on, who is, let me just put it this way. I read so many books, and I enjoy reading the books, and I read the footnotes, and I get really detailed and stuff, and I enjoy it. But I saw this dude and the product that he was putting out. I believe it was Brett Metcalf posted a promotion of your graphic novel, and I was like, this looks really cool. So I found the YouTube description of it. I saw the YouTube video promotion. I was like, oh, okay, dude, I got to get this guy on. So we just chatted the other day, and I'm honored to have the artist, the illustrator, the author and creator of this fine, cool graphic novel called The Glass Looker. Give him the full title, by the way, Mark. And it's Mark Elwood is my guest.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for that intro. So yeah, I'm the creator of The Glass Looker. The full title is The Glass Looker: Collected Tales of Joseph Smith. And to be honest, that subtitle kind of came later as I was thinking of how I wanted to format this book. Originally, I was thinking of it being a very tight, graphic novel. And then as I started to put it together, I decided I wanted to have the freedom to sort of treat it as vignettes. And we kind of got the idea from some of the other kind of writings of the time, I guess. And so yeah, collected tales is what it turned into, and that gives me a little bit of freedom to not have it quite as tight, but have these stories that connect to each other. So
So basically the object of this is to basically tell the lore and the folklore, the tales that surrounded Joseph Smith. Some of these stories are based in historical fact. Some of these are based on just oral testimonies that were given decades later.
That's right.
So it's one of those things where you're basically taking the entire package and putting it into a cohesive unit to tell a story.
Right. I guess that is an important note, that what I am drawing is not necessarily, almost certainly not what happened historically. It is, in fact, more of the legends and the lore. And what I'm trying to do is take those stories that people have told about Joseph, especially in regards to the treasure digging adventures, and just kind of try to relate those as if the teller or the storyteller is being completely factual. So I just go with what the statement is and try to illustrate it without making up too much detail on, or narrative on my own.
So the early days of Joseph Smith, the childhood and his early money digging days, are really kind of like some of the more interesting period of that history. It's really fascinating to me. I'm most fascinated with Mormonism, if you will, of the 1820s and up to the mid 1830s. That's where a lot of the action was, and so it's an exciting time. And so I think that taking the stories that were out there, and this is really interesting because I want to relate to my audience now. Of course, my channel is about the full spectrum of the restoration. I want to have all the different voices on my program, but I also want to talk about how in Christianity, we have the canon of what's in Scripture, but we also have these other tales and stories that developed about Jesus, and then the Apostle Paul. And then these battles that Peter would have with Simon Magus, and these were stories about the apostles, about Jesus's childhood. Some of these stories were disturbing. They weren't necessarily faith promoting, if you will, but these were popular with Christians. So what you're doing is you're taking the collected stories and putting them in a volume and preserving them in a way that we see with early Christianity, where we have access to those early stories, those non-canonical stories as well.
Yeah, so that is really cool. And I kind of had not forgotten, but it's not a part that I emphasized much to a Mormon audience, where on my mission, I really got interested in the lost tales, like about from the Bible, or not just the lost books, but the pseudepigrapha, if that's how you say it, and the apocrypha, because Mormons don't really use it. But we have a quote by, I think, Joseph, saying that, something about how there's mostly good in there. So it gave me kind of like freedom to branch out into that area. And for the longest time, I really was super fascinated in those stories. Like you mentioned, the stories about young Jesus in Egypt, and they brought him in front of an idol, and the idol crumbled, cool stuff like that. Those kind of stories have always fascinated me, just because they're ones that we don't hear. And granted, they're, the history of them is very sketchy, but they're still fantastic.
Yeah, they are. One of my favorite stories, as I always remember, is I remember reading a tale in which a lion comes to the Apostle Paul, and he says, "I want you to baptize me." And he gets into this argument with Apostle Paul. Well, you're not human, blah, blah, blah. And the lion insisted, please, I want to be baptized into the faith. So he does reluctantly, but he baptizes this lion into Christianity.
Wow,
Well,
I had not heard that one.
later in the story, as the story goes, Paul was thrown into a lion's den. But guess what? Lion is there. The one that he baptized him, so it saves the day. I just think that's a cool story.
It makes a lot more sense when you have that story to add to the rest of it. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking about when we're talking about the early days of Mormonism, is that, of course, there's going to be stories that come out about Joseph, what people said. Some of them are going to be tales that are, if you will, very faith promoting. And then some of them are going to be the detractors. And you're taking those stories and you're putting them all in there. And I think that that's kind of a cool thing that you're doing.
Yeah, because there's reason humans tell stories, whether, they just, I feel like they shouldn't be lost, these kind of stories. So, and since Mormonism is kind of young, we still have access to a lot of these stories too. So
in the graphic novel, you open up with Captain Kidd, and there's a lot of tales about Captain Kidd that were super popular at the time. And apparently in some of Joseph Smith's period of time, he was influenced by tales of Captain Kidd and buried treasure. And then there are also stories about Spanish mines, hidden Spanish mines, and different treasures that were dotted throughout the land. Of course, on top of that, we also have the mounds. There were treasures in there. So this is the world Joseph was in. So talk a little bit about that world of looking for lost, buried treasure.
Sure. So it's a weird period of time where the world went crazy, I guess, on just in the Americas anyway, where they were really looking for treasure, and they thought that there would be some there. And so we have, Captain Kidd. Basically, the whole eastern coastline was dug up. I personally have tracked, I don't know, like I'm looking at my map over here, but I've probably got, like 30, 40 different treasure digs that are not related to Joseph Smith, but just contemporaries or earlier that were looking for Kidd's treasure. And then, and I opened with Kidd because he really did bury some treasure, and it was recovered at Gardiner's Island. And I think that was the reason, that was one of the main reasons that people were thinking there really was treasure out there, because, it was a hard life. What else are you going to do at night, and it's a chance for you to go out there and try to change your trajectory in your life. If you find treasure, you've made it. So
yeah.
Sorry, I was getting off there, but basically, yeah, there was Kidd, there was, like you've mentioned, some of the other ones. There's also robbers, like bandits maybe would steal stuff and bury stuff. The other stories would include Revolutionary War kind of loot, especially Tories, and Native Americans, or an ancient race that existed. Their belief system back then was that there was some kind of ancient race that existed before the Native Americans, and they probably hid their treasures as well. So there's a lot of different sources, a lot of different places to dig for treasure.
And then you to give us the story of Lumen Walters,
Mhm.
and kind of give us a interesting tale of, well, first of all, you illustrate very beautifully the process of a search of how, what all the incantations and the slaughtering of a rooster,
Mhm.
and then the interactions that young Joseph has with him. And this gentleman also has a stone in the hat. So just talk a little bit about that story.
Okay, so for that part, I've mostly followed the Abner Cole account, and a lot of people have done a ton of research on Lumen Walters, and um, basically, like, I just followed the account that Abner Cole kind of spells out, and I have also combined a little bit of the Fayette Lapham account. I'm not the first person to speculate that the the man with the stone that he refers to could be Lumen Walters, and it's sort of an alternate origin story for where Joseph first encounters a seer stone. Usually, we go for it's kind of like three origin stories, really. You have the Sally Chase story, you have Lumen Walters story, and you have or the Fayette Lapham account, and you also have the Brown seer stone. So, I think obviously at this point people have figured out, well, all these stories could be true, or just basically, like, Sally's story is about one stone, and the Chase well is another stone. So anyway, so I tried to follow the kind of combine some of those accounts to create that Lumen Walters treasure dig. Abner Cole, he's really, he's very he's got a strong voice in his account. He's very antagonistic. People have speculated maybe it's because he was involved and maybe possibly tricked. It was on property he owned, so how would he want? He might have known some of it. So, but that account is the primary one that I use for that one.
It's so interesting because you did talk about how there was beliefs about an ancient race that inhabited, and that a lot of people thought that they were white skinned people
Mhm.
who built the mounds. What I found interesting, you made an editorial decision that when the
Mhm.
people were talking in their beliefs at that time, you made a point as an editor to
Mhm.
state, I find these views offensive, I don't believe them. Why did you feel the need to put that editorial in there?
Um, that's a good question. I yeah, I don't like the whole breaking into the story as the editor, but I try to do it as
Yeah, you were like Mormon, you were breaking into the story there.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But I think I was trying to do it without disrupting the narrative too much. But I wanted to point out that this isn't just me saying this. I'm not making this up. I mean, hopefully people, after they read each narrative section, they then see the source where I'm getting it from. But I also didn't. I wanted people immediately to know that this was a view of the people at the time, and not my own view, obviously. And it it was held by people of all ranks of life. You had DeWitt Clinton touring the area, and he was documenting every mound, and he was sure that it was basically like Roman, like, people, that used to live here. Um, and I think a lot of people, he was, very important, high class, whereas the Smiths, you could say, were farmers. And so it was a wide range of people that believed that there must have been some other race here before.
But I just found it interesting you made that decision. What,
Mhm.
just, is it because it was just the sensitivity of the topic of race that caused you to feel that you had to put that in there?
Yeah, well, it's a thing we're dealing with still today in Mormonism. I mean, it's like a hot topic even now. So, we have apologists, kind of people, trying to explain, the curse, or the black skin, and they have all different ways of trying to explain it. But the fact is, it's a 19th century kind of calling
Worldview.
card.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just wanted to make that aware.
Yeah. Okay. I understand. Yeah. I just wanted to kind of get some input there. And so one of the things that I found interesting was that you introduced the character of Joseph early on as a palm reader.
Mm-hmm.
At first I didn't understand what was you were doing, and then I realized, oh, he's reading palms. And then one thing I want to talk to the audience is that as with everything in Mormonism, footnotes and documentation is so important. And even in the graphic novel, you make a point to have the actual quote from the documents, and you have separate pages that give the information. So you have Joseph reading palms. What's that all about?
Yeah, so generally the way I want to do this graphic novel is I decided I would start kind of following what Michael Quinn does, where he's kind of like, he graduates up the scale of like the type of magic or the that he's experimenting with. So we're starting with things kind of simple, like palm reading, dreams and visions and things like this. We'll have a scene soon. It's like reading the tea leaves. But then we get to, dowsing, which is, people do that today still. And then eventually we're getting to more fantastic things, spirits and seer stones and more intense visions, and then animal sacrifice, some pretty dark stuff towards the middle of the story. And then just like I'm basically following a hero's journey. So Joseph will get to a low point when he gets to his glass looking trial in 1826. Then that will come back around to him, pulling the magical world that he's learned into a new system, working to get the Book of Mormon or the Golden Plates, I mean.
Yeah, so this just gives you a little taste of some of the content in this. I had the honor of you sending me a digital copy because it hasn't been printed yet. And then a little later on, I'm going to explain how people can get a copy of this upcoming exciting book. I just really find that you've done a lot of research, and you decided, just kind of give me the history of when did this idea germinate that you wanted to create this graphic novel? Because it was a story that's been meant to be told in this way for a very long time, and you're the first one to do it. Give me what made this start this whole thing up?
Okay, let's see. So the way it all started was, as I was kind of going through my own journey and starting to read a lot of those, history books, I read Rough Stone Rolling, and then immediately after that, I read Making of a Prophet by Dan Vogel, and that one I found myself sketching too. So I ended up kind of filling up sketchbook with different ideas, and just whenever there was something that popped in my head, and from there, I started thinking about doing an art book, maybe like a guide to treasure digging, which I still might do as like a side thing, I don't know. But then eventually I was like, these are really cool stories, and I don't want to lose them, or somebody needs to tell these stories, and maybe I'm not the right guy to do this, but I can. Right now I'm in a position where I could do it because I work out of the house as a freelance artist. And my wife really convinced me, I mean, it's really her fault, sort of, that I decided I would try to turn it into a graphic novel. I've never done a graphic novel before, so this is my first jump into it. And you can probably, even when you're reading it, you can start at the beginning and it gets stronger as I go, and I'm learning as I go. So but yeah, I think I didn't throw in a date in there, but I guess it would have been, I mean, it's been like 5 years at least of kind of researching, and I want to say, let's see, it's like, yeah, like probably like 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Started it.
Wow. So
Maybe.
you would say Dan Vogel really got you started on this. And of
Mhm.
course, if you're going into this story, into this world, you're going to also be talking to or engaging D. Michael Quinn's work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was in there too somewhere. Like at some point you just start absorbing everything, and so I want to say, like, I am not a trained historian or anything, but I just find, like, all those books, I was unaware of them. I always thought church history was kind of boring.
It's not.
Yeah, it's totally not. And when I realized that, I was like, well, this is a chance for me to kind of throw my hat in the ring or join the conversation. I can't really contribute a massive book. That's not really who I am. And nor should I. These guys have done so much work, and women. I say guys as just everyone, but there's some great books out there. And so I wanted to, I just figured, like, this will reach a different type of audience. And I'm hoping that by showing the sources and showing some of the newspapers and some of the things from the time period throughout the narrative, that it might interest some people to go go find a book about Joseph Smith, a biography or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just really interesting stuff. Now, let me ask you, did you ever get your hands on a copy of The Refiner's Fire?
Yeah, it's there somewhere.
Okay, good. All right. So I'm just testing you to see how much research you did. So you definitely hit all the big ones. That's good.
Yeah.
Did you get anything out of The Refiner's Fire? Was that a helpful book?
Okay, I will admit I just picked up Refiner's Fire at Sunstone just a few weeks ago. But I have, I'm kind of aware of some of the stuff, but yeah, that it's always like this too. Like I start researching, and then I draw, and then I'll run into something I'm not aware of, or a new story that I haven't really considered, and then I'll have to go back to research spiral. So that's one of the reasons this first book has taken so long, is it's been a difficult period. It's 1821, and mostly where I'm covering, and there's just not a lot that's really blocked out there. When we get into 1822 and into 1823, of course, it gets very, we know where Joseph is weekly almost. Not really.
Yeah. Like, and then when we speculate about the different stories, like Alvin's body being disturbed, the speculation, of course, what that might have been all about. I imagine you'll be touching on that.
Yeah, I will. I want to kind of show things in the best light possible.
Good. Yeah.
Try to keep, I don't want to speculate on. So I will be showing that scene, like them exhuming Alvin. I have sketches of it already.
Okay.
But I don't want to show, because we don't know exactly what happened. So it might even be a little unsatisfying, because we won't know exactly. But I do feel like that is a moment that possibly could turn Joseph away for a little bit from the magic or the occult, because he gives back the stone just not at around that same time, and kind of gets into the revival stuff at that point. So for a period, he gives up on the magical world. So yeah, that's what I'm using it as, kind of an instigating moment.
Because it's a little taste of what's coming up. And so and this is an endlessly fascinating story. I wanted to kind of spitball with you a little bit here, because one of the books that I really enjoyed, and this would probably be in your third volume, but you're probably still barely just outlining that at this point, but a couple of things. You have Don Bradley's book, The Lost 116 Pages. And one of the things I found so interesting about the book was he basically attempts to reconstruct the lost 116 pages of the Book of Mormon. And in that story, there's a different story that's different from the Book of Mormon, based on what other people were saying. It's just really brilliant how he reconstructed this stuff. One of the things I found fascinating was that there's a alternative story about, for instance, when they land on the Americas, they encounter these ancient ruins, and they presume that they possibly may have even been built by giants. And I thought, what about taking some of those early stories of the Book of Mormon and maybe integrating that into the story? Because I think just having like a different story of the Book of Mormon illustrated might be kind of a cool thing.
Yeah. So that Don Bradley is amazing. And that a lot of that stuff comes from the Fayette Lapham. I don't know if I'm saying that right. The Fayette Lapham account, because it's Joseph Sr. and he's very early on talking to Fayette Lapham, who then records it like what years and later, but still he records a slight, different and more kind of interesting story that possibly Joseph Sr. is telling, right? So, and there's some other ones too, some of the Harrises and things, but yeah, like there does seem to be some like the giants and some interesting that possibly the people before were it's not just Joseph. There was other people nearby that in the Rochester area there was a kind of a prophet guy there, or a seer that was talking about giant race of people and even a small race of people too. So yeah, I didn't show too much, like I don't think I showed any flashbacks yet or anything like that, but I have just visions, but there will be some flashbacks in the next book. And as the Book of Mormon is constructed, I will be showing like what we are visualizing there.
Yeah, it's so cool. And like even like the wood scrape incident, that predates Joseph. That's a fascinating story as well.
Yeah, it is. And I've considered drawing that. There is another artist who has illustrated a comic style of that as well. It's pretty cool. So, and I'm sorry, I can't think of his name right off the top of my head. It's Nick Perkins.
Nick Perkins. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. In the back of your book, you have kind of a sketchbook. I'm assuming that's going to be in the printed edition.
Yeah, and extended. I have a few more pages I want to throw in there, but yeah.
I wanted to ask you, because one of the things you did was you drew the spectacles that accompany the Book of Mormon. What made you decide to make them regular size spectacles and not oversized spectacles?
Did I do that? Well, I don't know if I drew them.
So they look like regular size to scale.
No, they will not be regular sized.
Okay.
It may be that I drew them. Well, yeah, I didn't really, there's no scale reference, I guess, other than if you're comparing it to the stones around it or something. But no. I'm, I did draw it kind of on the table. Some of these early sketches, maybe I just wasn't.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right. No, there's a source that says he held it up, just kind of had to look through one because the other one was big. And yeah, the spectacles are interesting because there's a lot of sources that don't agree on, are they clear or are they white with speckles in them and stuff like that. So, but it's fun. I'll figure out how I'm doing that when we see them.
When I was talking to Dr. Richard Bushman, we got into a little bit about the spectacles. And because he's been doing a study about the plates for like 10 years. He's been doing this work on the plates. And I said, but the most fascinating thing about Joseph in this story is he was more interested in those spectacles than he was in the plates.
Yeah, that's true. He said that he could see anything in them, right? So, and who knows what happened to those, right?
Yeah. So and then I just going back to the last 116 pages book, I liked how he took took them as spectacles, as that they were like swivel, and then you close them up and they form the Star of David. I just thought that was kind of a cool speculation on his part.
So I will say I'm kind of a nerd about that, but there's a sketch out there where they have a right triangle and they have another compass, and they say when you close it, it makes the Star of David, but that does not work.
Oh, well.
But it's cool. A good idea. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I kind of like the people. This is what this whole book and this whole story lends itself to, the speculation and the adventure that all of this is. I just think that's like such a cool thing that you're doing. Tell me a little bit about what the plan is for the release of this book and how people can go about getting their hands on an upcoming copy.
Okay, so since I am self-publishing here in Atlanta, I am taking pre-orders until September 1st. And then after that, I'm halting pre-orders, but you can still purchase it once I have the first run printed. So the reason for that is it gives me sort of an estimate on how many I should be running on that first print. And then I will be shipping it and hopefully getting it all out to everybody by September 22nd. And that's just sort of tongue in cheek because September 22nd is, that's the day you got to appease the treasure guardian. So
I didn't even catch that, man. That's okay.
Yeah.
How did I not catch September
I
22nd?
know it's kind of a random date. A lot of people were like, huh? Like, why are you? No, that's just why. I'm just being kind of an idiot. So yeah.
Oh, so I just want a little bit about your background. So like, did you serve, were you like born and raised in a church and serve a mission and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, no, I enjoyed my Mormon upbringing. I was raised in Nevada, and I served a 2-year mission in Knoxville, Tennessee. I think it was called the Tennessee Knoxville mission, and enjoyed that. Encountered a lot of Baptists and a lot of the whole range of Christianity there, which was new for me. I would, growing up out west, I hadn't encountered too many of different faiths, but and really enjoyed or learned to love the people, and that was mostly, I mean, it wasn't a great experience by mission, but I I got out of there and then moved on with my life. I went to art school in Atlanta, and I haven't left. No, I ended up doing an aerospace career, kind of doing concept art for various aerospace companies here in Atlanta, as well as some stuff for the Air Force and NASA and stuff like that. It was really great.
So,
go ahead.
Oh no, well, continue.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so the end of, I guess so. I'm not a practicing Mormon. I like to claim the term Mormon. I am more of in the ex-Mormon or post-Mormon camp, but I have learned to kind of embrace, basically, I wanted a way to deal with Mormonism in a constructive way, and this is how I decided that I would do it, is kind of learn these stories and share them with others.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point of this show is, I'm an evangelical. I'm not here to proselytize. I'm not here to bash. I'm here to have a conversation. I'm not here to have a bunch of ex-Mormons coming on and just say to run down the church. And so I just want faithful members to understand that's not the point of this show, but the show is to talk to all the different voices. If there's ex-Mormons or I actually kind of like Nathan Smith likes to call himself a post-Mormon because he's an alma mater of Mormonism, that he was, he's graduate, and he got an education and shaped him for who he was and is appreciative that way. And I think I kind of feel the same sense from you.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely problems I have with Mormonism, but I also appreciate that it's shaped who I am. And I think that my goal is to kind of, I think I might have already said this, but cast Joseph in the best possible light with these stories, because a lot of them are, in kind of a fictional fantasy folklore version. They're not necessarily real or anything, but I wanted to kind of make it where you could read it as a believer, and I like to joke that it will make you feel uncomfortable, but you might be able to get through it and realize that it's just folk stories. And if, as a historian, if you read it, you'd be uncomfortable. You'd be mad at me for treating some of these really obscure stories as if they are real. And then if you're reading it as an ex-Mormon, you might be grumpy that I didn't, show Joseph as a horrible person. So yeah.
So you're just right in that right spot.
Just make everyone mad at me, I think.
And that's fine. Rick Bennett tells me when I know that I'm getting arrows from both sides, I'm in the right spot. So I kind of think that's a good place to be. It's a fascinating story that you're telling. You're planning on doing 3 volumes. And so we're gonna have a trilogy, which is so cool.
Or more. It might be more.
Okay, that's fine. And I'll have you on for every volume that comes on, as long as you promise me you'll send me a free copy.
Okay.
And but I just wanted to tell everybody that I'm going to provide a link. Now, this comes out, you got to do your pre-order reservation by September 1st, 2021. And the print date is going to be, of course, September 22nd, 2021, of course. And so I'm going to provide a link so that you're able to access that. And also I'm going to provide a link to a promo video that you made. When I saw that, I was like, okay, I'm having them on. This looks too cool. And so, Mark, I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on to the program. Do you have any final words for my audience?
Oh no, I want to say, like, thank you so much. I did not know about your program, and I was thrilled to see what you're doing, and just super happy that you reached out, and just again, like, really happy with what you're doing. Like, I think it's really cool. Oh, and I just wanted to shout out to, like, a couple things. Like, one is the Sunstone Symposium. I mean, like, without that, I probably wouldn't, that was kind of my people, I guess, people like me that are kind of on the fringe and have these niche projects. That definitely kind of started me off. And then, of course, I mean, I don't know, all the people that I'm basically using their work. I mean, like, I just really appreciate, like, Dan Vogel and Dale Broadhurst and Michael Marquardt, and all these, I mean, the list is really long, but just really appreciate all the work that those guys have done. And thank you for all that research that people have done with their boots on the ground. I've only done a little bit where I'm, going out there and researching, but these guys have, dug through basements and finding documents and things. So it's great. So
yeah, and of course, the last thing you're supposed to say, buy my book.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I'm making this book for me. Like, I want this to exist, and so I'm very happy to see it in print. And I hope that people will enjoy it also. I mean, like, it's just a passion project for me. So, but I hope you enjoy it.
One of the other things I want to mention is that you will be sending some copies to Benchmark Books.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just give a shout out to Kurt Bench. He just passed away. We just heard earlier that he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had the honor to meet him, and he was just such a decent fellow.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's just, I just wanted to thank Kurt Bench for everything he's done.
Yeah.
He's a good dude. So, well, either way, I wanted to remind everybody to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you'll be reminded when a new episode comes out. I have all the information in the description, so you can order the book by clicking on that link. I want you all to have a great day. Mark, I want to thank you for coming on my program.
Well, thanks a lot, Steven.
All right, everybody, have yourself a great day.